Avatar: The Way of the Water, the long-awaited sequel to the first movie, came out 13 years after James Cameron's fantasy sci-fi epic blockbuster, and Sam Worthington is back in theaters as part of the series that made him the star of the highest-grossing movie of all time. So, today we're going to discuss Worthington's recent interview, James Cameron addressing the 13-year delay, and talk about the real reason why Avatar 2 took so long. Starting off with Sam Worthington's interview. The 46-year-old actor talked about when he signed up for the first Avatar all those years ago and how he had no idea it would take up so much of his life for so long. Worthington is reprising his most iconic role of Jake Sully, a former US Marine, in The Way of Water. But this time though, Sully has left his human body behind to follow his love for Neytiri, played by Zoe Saldana, who is a part of the Na'vi tribe. Action-packed and full of epic scenes, the movie also introduced the Metkayina Reef Clan, another group of people who live on Pandora. The Na'vi tribe lives in the forest, while the Metkayina roams the seas, diving down to meet all kinds of strange creatures. And this meant that Cameron's actors had to learn how to free dive so that he could film them in water tanks using the performance capture methods for the movie. Maybe that's why the sequel took so long, but we'll come back to that later. Let's talk about the hardest thing Worthington had to do on set. Cliff Curtis, who just joined the cast and played the leader of the reef people, Tonawari, said he loved being part of the filming process. On the other hand, Worthington wasn't as enthusiastic. According to him, it was the hardest thing he's ever done. Worthington said it's scary when people talk about what they will try to do, and not so surprisingly, it took him many months to learn how to do this from the best professionals in the world. He also learned to slow down his heart rate, get more oxygen into his bloodstream, and figure out the mechanics of it. Well, it definitely paid off. Coming up, James Cameron addressing concerns over 13-year time gap between Avatar movies. As the saying goes, you shouldn't bet against Cameron, and with new Avatar movies coming out every 2 years until 2026, it looks like Cameron is here to stay for a long time. In a recent interview with the filmmaker, he talked about the 13-year gap between Avatar and The Way of Water. He also talked about his lowest point during that time and if he thought the movie might not happen. Well, according to Cameron, they started the underwater motion capture in September of 2017 and did it for a year and a half, and then they did over a year of live action photography. Back in 2007, when they were shooting the first Avatar, he said that the main difference between how performance capture is done now and how it was done before is that it's really director-centric now. This is mainly because Cameron can now see how the performances and backgrounds come together in real time. Technology has surely evolved rapidly in the past decade. What's more, COVID-19 affecting the filming of Avatar 2. When talking about the lowest point in the shooting for Avatar 2, Cameron said that the worst time was when they were locked up. The whole world was locked up and nothing was safe. He added that all of their priorities suddenly didn't mean what they thought they meant, and it took them a while to recover and get back into production. After that, they worked for a couple of years on a movie that might not have seen the face of the theaters. But then, as they finished the movie, he saw that the industry around him was slowly getting better, which gave him hope and confidence that the movie would be shown in theaters. And even though COVID-19 has been really bad for theaters in the past few years, Cameron is likely to be one of the directors who can get people back into theaters and hopefully revive the cinema tradition. We would very much love for that to happen. Not to mention, how did Cameron overcome the pandemic? Titanic, his big hit from 1997, and was the highest grossing movie ever, making $2.2 billion worldwide. And when it comes out again next year in February, it will definitely make even more. Titanic held this record for 12 years until James Cameron beat himself with Avatar. As for the first Avatar, it has made more than $2.9 billion, and its re-release earlier this year alone made $75 million worldwide. Cameron pointed out that if Avatar 2 had come out any sooner, there would have been no chance of making money. That's because the pandemic wasn't fully over yet, and people were still recovering from the aftermath. Luckily for him, it looks like theaters are back in business just in time for the release of The Way of Water, which is good news for Cameron. Only 3 movies, Top Gun, Maverick, Jurassic World Dominion, and Spider-Man No Way Home, have made $1 billion worldwide since theaters reopened. But only 5 movies have made $2 billion, and 2 of them were made by Cameron. And with The Way of Water, we'll see if Cameron can keep up this amazing run of success. Moving on to the real reason Avatar 2 took so long. Avatar was a CGI-heavy sci-fi epic that quickly became the highest grossing movie of all time. Back then, in 2009, it was seen as a game changer that set the stage for today's special effects heavy franchise blockbusters. After that huge success, Cameron and Fox quickly announced 2 sequels, and this wasn't surprising since Cameron had been discussing plans to make the film a franchise as early as 2006. Soon, there were 4 of these sequels, but they took a long time to make as shooting dates were set but kept getting pushed back. Despite all the delays with The Way of Water, the first of the 4 Avatar sequels is finally out. In Avatar 2, we see Jake and Neytiri's family at different parts of Pandora, with a focus on an underwater place. The franchise, up to Avatar 5, is finally coming out after 13 years. Many people think that the movie's chance of becoming a franchise and its status as a cultural landmark has already passed. So why did it take so long to make Avatar 2? That brings us to how Avatar 2 was released 13 years later so that Cameron could get it right. The long-awaited trailer for Avatar 2 gave a lot of important information about the sequel, including the fact that the CGI is once again groundbreaking. And it's not a secret that James Cameron's sequel would use a lot of cutting-edge underwater filming technology. We think this is one reason why it took so long to make the sequel, which was necessary since The Way of Water introduced a new Na'vi tribe, the Metkayina, who lived around and in Pandora's ocean. But that's not the only reason over a decade passed between Avatar and Avatar 2. There were several reasons, but the main one is simple. James Cameron simply didn't rush. The Avatar franchise has always been known as a deeply personal project for Cameron, and it's possible that the pentalogy will be his magnum opus when it's done. As well as waiting for technology to catch up to his vision, James Cameron probably didn't go any further until he had the story for The Way of Water figured out. Also, Cameron hasn't been shy about having a story arc plan for all 5 Avatar movies. It's common knowledge that creating a story that spans so many movies takes time, and James Cameron is probably well aware of how likely franchises are to fail when stories are built one movie at a time. Next up, Cameron needed to perfect underwater CGI. Well, we've had to wait 13 years for the Avatar sequels because they've been in pre-production for a long time. This is because James Cameron was committed to the special effects that made Avatar stand out from other movies at the time. As a known perfectionist, he clearly didn't mind taking his time and waiting for the technology to catch up to his vision. Cameron said in 2011 that he wanted to film the Avatar sequels at a higher frame rate, which didn't become common in movies until Peter Jackson made the Hobbit trilogy and quickly disappeared after. By 2016, he was talking about the possibility of shooting the movie in 3D without glasses, but he later admitted that the technology wasn't there yet. Flash forward to the modern days. Effects that seemed unique in 2009 are now common in blockbuster movies, but that only made Cameron want to go further, even if it meant waiting a few more years. And in this case, the director chose the water, as he has always been interested in underwater settings. The Abyss and Titanic show this, and his real-life deep-sea adventures back it up. And since the beginning of the Avatar sequels, Cameron has said that Avatar 2 would be set underwater. As for the underwater effects, they have always been hard to recreate in any way. Even shooting in camera has its limits, so it's even harder to do them with motion capture. So this means that major updates were needed. But Cameron, the madman, finally figured out how to film underwater for Avatar 2, as the breathtaking movie shows. Last but not least, The Way of Water made the wait worth it. We think the long-awaited sequel was worth the wait just because of how well the CGI was done, and both audiences and critics were blown away by it when they saw it in theaters. In Avatar 2, James Cameron takes viewers to a world they could never have imagined, which definitely makes up for some of the delays the movie went through. And we think that Pandora has never looked better. Even though Avatar didn't come out when CGI was starting out, it's hard to say if James Cameron could have made a sequel on this scale in 2013 before technology rapidly improved. On top of that, the aquatic Metkayina live in a place where early 2010s CGI just wouldn't have been as immersive, and the extra time also gave studios more time to work on the plot. According to critics, the story in Avatar wasn't as interesting as the CGI, which made the movie a near unparalleled cinematic spectacle. But early reviews suggest that Avatar 2 didn't fall into this trap. Overall, the sequel looks amazing, and the story of Avatar: The Way of Water isn't as two-dimensional as that of the first one, and this makes the sequel well worth the 13-year wait. That's all for this video. Do you think Avatar 2 was worth the 13-year wait? Let us know in the comments below. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content in the future. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.